Good morning, Renee.
Good morning, Marvina. How are you?
Oh, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. It has
Oh,
been a while.
it has been. We've
Yeah.
been busy little beavers. One of us is retired, so you've probably been busier than the other beaver, but whatever. I digress. You look a little bit different today, little different background, huh?
I'm trying a different background because I think I told you before the white wall seems to kind of wash me out. And it's
Okay,
like I thought,
okay,
well, maybe a little color, but now I'm kind of going, I don't know. I'll see if I
okay,
go back to
okay,
the other one. I don't know.
okay. I like it,
Oh, good,
and I
good.
I have enough color, so
Yes, you do.
I
Yeah.
don't get washed out. Well, I like it. I like it.
Oh, good.
Change
Thanks.
is always good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So today what we're going to talk about a little bit about on Faith, Hope, and Friends. Actually, let me back up. We're at episode 52, and which is great because sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle for us. I
Yeah.
Okay, let me not say us, let me say me. Sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle. So I'm very happy about that. Episode 52. And today what we're going to be kind of conversing about is staying in your lane.
Yep. You've used that term a lot of times. Yep. Yep.
Because I have to talk to myself. Um, and so God has really been dealing with me about staying in my lane.
Hmm.
And you could take that a bunch of different ways. I mean, mind your business, stay over there, a bunch of different ways. But what God had really been dealing with me with is staying in my lane because sometimes we get pulled in to
Hmm.
things that we have no business in.
Hmm.
Or that maybe God just wants us to drop a little seed and then move on the way.
Hmm.
And so the last maybe about probably the last year and a half, it's just really been strong in my spirit. And I think that's because first of all, as Christians, a lot of times I think we want the best for everyone.
Hmm.
Want
Hmm.
to see people, we want to see people prosper. We want to see them do well. If there's things they've been struggling with, we want to see them overcome those things. But
Hmm.
sometimes we get just a little bit too involved.
Yeah.
And that is what God was telling me, Marvina, you need to move out the way. Not only and there's a multitude of reasons for that. For me, it was God wanted me to focus more on me
Hmm.
um, and what
Hmm.
he has me to do and preparing me for um, how he wants me to show up in other people's lives, in
Right.
my own life, in
Right.
my family's life. And I think that a lot of times we get pulled out of our lane and then it becomes a distraction. It
Hmm.
distracts us from what God actually wants us to do.
Right. Right.
I've been talking to my family a lot about me staying in my lane. And then also okay, we already know I'm gonna be all over the place. So
Yeah.
let's just try to keep up.
My
Be shifting
neck.
gears. I'm gonna be shifting gears
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So as I always say, my caffeine's kicking in.
There
So
you
so with my family, I always tell them, don't get sucked into the vortex.
go. Mm.
And what the vortex is, it's the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
But it's a vortex is like it's just like this swirling wind that just all this chaos that just takes everything in its path, it sucks it in.
Yeah.
Or you know it. And so I use that analogy because sometimes we have things going on in our families, in our friendships, things that don't necessarily have anything to do with us,
Hmm.
but because we want to help,
Hmm.
because we want to give the best advice, sometimes we don't stop at just that. And then we
Hmm.
get sucked in. And before you know it, you're in the middle of the chaos that had nothing to do with you. And then when the aftermath, you're blamed for it, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, why are you mad at me? I was
Yeah.
just, oh, well, maybe God did not tell you to get over there in that lane
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get sucked into the vortex. And that is what God has really been dealing with me about. And since I have been staying in my lane, it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not as burdensome. You don't feel as heavy
Yeah.
and as tired emotionally, spiritually,
Right.
physically. It's such a burden because it's not yours to carry. And
Yeah.
so it's too heavy, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I had an image in my head when you're talking about this, the vortex. If you were in the middle of a tornado,
yep.
family, friends, like you say, whatever the situation is, and you're standing there because you're going to fix it, right? And you're in this, and I'll fix it. I'll fix it. You get hit in the head
Yep.
with a TV or with with a windowsill but I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna fix it. It's like, no, you shouldn't be in the middle of the tornado to begin with.
Right,
Get
right.
out. Yeah.
Get out. And
Yeah.
you have to, and I had to consciously think about that.
Hmm.
So what staying in my lane helped me to do is be able to have more clarity and
Hmm.
to hear God when God is like, mm-mm, you're getting too close to the edge.
Yeah.
You're veering over. And my daughter Armisha, it's so funny because as much as I say stay in my lane on here, I say it in my everyday life all the time because I have to remind myself.
Yeah.
And so Armisha will just give me this little smirk like, okay, mom, I see you, you know. And so I'm like, I'll start, they'll over here talking about something, or they're trying to figure something out, or they're talking about an issue, or just I picked something up, and then before you know it, I've switched into mom mode. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what you guys should do is that, and then the Holy Spirit is like, hey, excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse
Yeah.
me. I'm like, staying in my lane. My but it's just it's exhausting even talking about it.
Well, it reminds me of those drivers, right? You're on the freeway and it's just bumper to bumper. And you got this person who has pushed as far as they could because they don't want to have to wait their turn. And they put their blinker on. It's like, you see me coming? And they start edging over. It's like, you see me? You see me?
That usually is me. You know, so we go to I have family in Ohio.
Hmm.
And I know it's drivers are very different to me
Yeah.
in California
Yeah.
versus Ohio. Now, and I'm gonna say this. So, okay, so what I noticed,
It's almost like confession time.
the background, so I noticed, okay, so driving in Ohio freeways, you come to your exit, and there's like a long line of cars that have veered over to get off at the exit, right? And I'm like, oh, this is really a busy intersection. Like, oh my gosh, it must be so much traffic, right? Well, because I'm a little bit impatient, if there's another lane, I'm going to get over to the other lane.
Yeah.
But then I get up to the front of the line and I'm like, well, everybody's waiting their turn. That's why it's so long. I know that's not really how I should be looking at things, but wait, because I merge in quite a bit. I'm like, that line is too long. No, I need to get a little bit further to the front. Then I'll start to merge in, right?
Yeah.
And every time I have a conversation with my friends or with other people, and they're like, oh my gosh, this person, they just, I hate people wait till the last minute. I'm like, that would be me. But even with that analogy, it translates into our real life, right?
Yep. Yep.
And sometimes we have the intent is great, but
Hmm.
because of my impatience,
Yeah.
I want to hurry up and get to the goal. Like, hey, what we gonna do? Either we're gonna do it or not. Are you gonna go or are you not? Or you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so, but we get in the way of what God is doing with other people
Right.
and for other people sometimes.
Yeah.
And just with as I look at like the prayers I've had for my children and loved ones and my friends, and as God has, helped me to stay more in my lane, I can actually see where I have contributed to the stunting of some people's growth
Yeah. Yeah.
because you delay what God is trying to do with them and for them.
Yeah.
And no matter how good the intention is on my end, and God is going to do what God is going to do. So he's going to get that person to where they need to get.
Right.
But sometimes you make the road just a little bit more bumpy than it has to be
Yeah.
by being in the way.
Yeah.
And so I'm really trying to, and it has also helped me to be able to um focus more on what God wants me to do, how he wants me to do it, how he wants me to show up in people's lives,
Hmm.
and to fortify myself, right? To
Yeah.
fortify, to build up our spirit, because our fight is not against flesh and blood. And especially I think we're in a unique time because I believe that there's been a shift spiritually. I think
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
as far as like we're not doing things the way we used to do them before. We're
Hmm.
in a new age. In a new time. We're dealing with new generations, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so um what me staying in my lane has helped me to do is to focus more on God so I can prepare myself for whatever that next assignment is going to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes our next assignment is just being still because we know other people are watching us. We know other people, or sometimes a lot of the times, most of the times, we witness is through our example, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so, if you all in everybody else's business all the time,
Yeah. Yeah.
what does that say?
Yeah.
Or
Exactly.
you're become a busybody. And again, the intent is not to do that,
Right.
but we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. When you were talking about impeding what God has, it made me think of my mom. She lives in Orangevale,
Mhm.
and so I have to drive her to church on Sundays, and she goes clear into South Sacramento. So it's
Okay.
about probably a 30 to 35-minute drive for me to get her and take her into church.
Okay.
And so one Sunday morning we were going in, and it was the California International Marathon was going
Okay.
on. So if you've ever been in that traffic,
Mhm.
right about 10 o'clock, because the race starts at I think like 7 in the morning or something like that. So right
Okay.
about 9:30, 10 o'clock, everybody's trying to head for the state capitol because they want to see the runners start coming in.
Hmm.
And so oh man, I forgot I would have got off on a side street but I didn't remember. And so we're just stuck in this traffic,
Hmm.
just bottleneck and just inching up. My mom's going to be late for church. Well, we finally got to a point and there was like 5 lanes, I think, and I was like in the second one. And so we finally get to a point where I start seeing flashing lights. So it's like,
Okay.
oh, okay, there's an accident also. So that's what we're battling. It's not just the traffic to get to the Capitol.
Hmm.
So, as we're getting closer, I can see that the lanes are shifting over two lanes.
Okay.
So we're narrowing down to like 2 lanes of traffic. So I'm in this lane and I know I've got to start merging where this lady comes from this side and she wants to get in front of me.
Okay.
Well, I keep it real tight with the car in front of me because I know that you're going to get in my lane, then you're going to have to merge over too. So but you should have seen the look I'm getting from this lady. She was just cursing at me, you could tell. And I'm thinking, late, I said, just wait. And I'm trying to point ahead, tell her, look ahead, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And she was not going to do that. I was just, you know,
Mm-hmm.
impeding her progress. And and she was kind of behind a box truck, so I don't think she could see. Anyway,
Okay.
I just stayed real close, and finally she sees that she's got to merge over, and then I'm merging over. But that was an interesting point because God can see
Mm-hmm.
ahead, and He's going, okay, I know what that person's going to come up against, or the situation that's coming up, or the uh, the heart, um, how the heart is going to react.
Mm-hmm.
So stop trying to edge in
Mm-hmm.
when I'm saying you need to be over this way,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so yeah, that just really made me think that we can't see what God sees. So we
Right.
have to trust when you're feeling like I want to get in that lane,
Right.
it's like, and it's not an opening, don't
That's
force yourself in there.
that's
You
right.
have to go, okay, God must see something ahead. This
Right.
person's going to be more receptive ahead, or this situation is going to be more manageable ahead. And so, yeah, I agree. Sometimes we can be so determined
Mm-hmm.
that we're going to fix it or
Mm-hmm.
we're going to straighten you out, you
Right.
know, and then
Right.
we do damage.
Yeah.
We put
Right.
ourselves in a situation where now we're having to shift over and it's so yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Sometimes I think we enable instead of empower. Our
yeah.
goal is to empower, but
Mhm.
because we're in the way, we're enabling, you
Right,
know.
right.
And and so not only are we doing damage to ourselves because we're out of the will of what God wants us to do, but we're also bringing damage to somebody else
Hmm.
because now
Hmm.
we're delaying
Right.
what God is trying to do with them. And I do think it comes from a place of, a lot of times it comes from a place of fear because we're so fearful that our loved ones won't get it or that
Hmm.
our friends won't get it, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes we have friends and family members that battle with addiction, that battle with mental illness, they battle with all these different things, and we're praying for God's deliverance, but
Hmm.
sometimes we get in the way of that.
Yeah.
And it becomes from a fear of it. For me, I think it comes from a fear of, God, I want them to get to heaven. You know what I'm saying? I
Hmm.
want
Hmm.
them to be able to look in your face. And because we're so afraid that that won't happen, we start doing more damage,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I um it's been very interesting
Yeah. Yeah.
for me. And because if you're naturally a person that wants to help,
Hmm.
sometimes you just get in the mode of, we don't see it as, I got to take care of this, I got to fix this out, figure this out, I got to fix this, but that is the perception we're giving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody else can figure this out except for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so,
And we
now,
need to make oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh, go on.
No, we need to make the distinction between helping and saving.
Yeah,
Not our job to save.
right. That's right.
If we are given an opportunity to help,
Yep.
just we have to make sure that we don't go beyond that.
Right.
Because like you say earlier, I've done that too, where it's like, okay, somebody will want an opinion or what do you think? And it's okay, I'll give my opinion, but then it'll be like, well, you need to do this is your steps now. This is what you need. It's like,
Right. Exactly.
just Stop. You can't save.
That's right. You can't
Yeah.
say. And then you got to think about how do you feel when others are merging into your lane, you know, and too early,
Yeah.
so now it could also go too far. Sometimes I want to stay in my lane and not merge at all. And God's like, yeah, but that's not the route. We need to
Yeah.
exit. And no, I don't, you know what? I'm good right here.
Yeah.
I think sometimes that's when we like when it comes to cutting people off, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I got out of my lane and got into your lane, and you didn't drive the way I think that you should drive.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna waste my time. What? Why are you mad? God didn't tell you to merge over,
Yeah. Yeah.
or He told you to.
Yeah.
And so this is where God has you. But it's just you
I
could see
don't.
I'm still like not battling with it, but sometimes I'm just like, God, but do you see them? Do you see them? They are literally acting as if they don't know how to drive at all.
Yeah.
And it's like, girl, mind your business. You're good here. They're okay. You know what I'm saying? It's just
I
um
don't I don't know why I picture God when you're driving. God said, Marvina, put on your blinker, pull off to the shoulder. We're gonna talk.
like, but I don't want to. And I just, okay, I will, but can we just get up there first?
Oh gosh.
And I also will say when people aren't used to you staying in your lane, it's difficult for them too. Um, because now they have to learn how to proceed without you being, and I don't want to say the lead because I think sometimes we think we're the lead and we're not necessarily the
Hmm.
lead.
Hmm.
But I think that sometimes the training wheels just stay on longer than they need to
Yeah. Yeah.
because we won't get out the way.
Right. Right.
And I do think that as women, as mothers, as wives, as aunts, as cousins, it's difficult. As women, it's
Hmm.
difficult for us.
Right.
Because
Right.
I do think that there's, God has given us a certain thing that we are able to see things spiritually a little bit different. We're able to really feel what people are going through.
Hmm.
And sometimes we just don't know what to do with that.
Right.
And in an effort to help them, we just get in the way. And so, and that's what God has just really been dealing with me about. Just move out the way. Just move out the way,
Hmm. Hmm.
And so yeah, it's just, and that was just one of the things I wanted to talk about. Um, it's helped me to set healthy boundaries. And I think
Hmm.
that sometimes we go, you know, it's a fad now to set boundaries. It is,
Hmm.
but sometimes that's a way out because I just don't want to deal with you.
Yeah.
But to set those boundaries healthy, right? Healthy boundaries because we're
Hmm.
all imperfect. So we're never going to have these perfect relationships with people and
Right.
where everything is just going to be bubblegum and roses.
Yeah.
But I don't even know where that came from, bubblegum and roses. But um what it boils down to is trusting God,
Hmm. Hmm.
trusting Him in the process.
Right. Right.
God, whatever this is, and God has really allowed me since I've moved out the way, I can actually see a lot of prayers that God has answered
Hmm. Hmm.
because now my focus is different.
Right.
I'm not focused on all of what's wrong.
Right.
I'm focused on now because I've removed a lot of the distractions, I can see God moving.
Yeah.
Okay, God, I get it a little bit now,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I can see if I could just stay on this course. And sometimes, and so that's what God is showing me. As long
Hmm.
as I keep moving forward over here, I have this over here. But I
Yeah.
need for you to keep moving that way
Yeah.
that I can bring this along this way. And so,
Yeah. And I think a good indicator that you've stepped out
mhm.
in helping too much or thinking it's your place to help too much is resentment. If you
Mm,
start resenting it, you
right,
should look at that and go, I probably should have not been in this lane
right.
because, maybe God hasn't put me here. Maybe God put you in there for a moment to share a
That's
scripture or say, hey, or I'll pray for you or something like that. But
that's it.
maybe you forced your way into that lane
Yep.
and now, you're resenting that you have to be there.
Yes.
It's like, well, he's going, I didn't ask you. I didn't invite you in.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
exactly right.
yeah,
Um, and you're right. And I do think with the resentment and which when you said that, I immediately saw when I start going down the rabbit hole. When
yeah,
I start going down the rabbit hole, because that's gonna lead me to resistance. Because now I'm building up being mad about having to do this
yeah, yeah, exactly.
and being here
Yeah,
in this space. And so and it's so true, Renee. If you're
yeah,
if you are resentful about some things that you are having to do, you got to look and see. And it may not be that God is removing you from doing it, but there's some things that you don't got to do. There's
hmm,
some things, you've gotten out your lane a little bit,
yeah,
maybe. And so we got to check that. And that's what his God has been showing me.
yeah,
It,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's when you said that about finding yourself somewhere, I know I've used this story before, but there was a lady outside of Golden One
mm,
asking everybody for money. Well, it made me upset because it's like,
mhm.
there are so many programs you can go to. There are so many opportunities for you to go to. You don't have to be standing out asking people for money. And your thought is they're going to go buy liquor, they're going to go buy, so it just irritated me. So I said, well, you know what? I don't have any money, but I'll take you to wherever you are, to
Okay.
wherever you need to go. Well, she was staying in this hotel, motel on Folsom Boulevard. And you know Folsom Boulevard and how it gets in some areas.
Mhm.
And so I thought, well, I'll just go pay for a night for a room for her. That made more sense to me.
Okay.
So as I'm standing there in this lobby of this hotel, I realize, I mean, my spirit is just getting terrified. It's like you're in the wrong place. You have
Mhm.
no business being here.
Mhm.
And I was scared. I was just praying the Lord's protection. And
Yeah.
thankfully, he wasn't looking at me like, well, you dummy. I never asked you to do this. Um, because it scared me. And you
I'm
realize
sure.
what was
I'm
going.
still stuck at, I'll take you. No, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was out of my lane. I was getting in somebody else's lane. If that was what she wanted to do, then none of my business, just let her ask for money. But yeah, that was, you put yourself in situations where you realize
Right.
I have no business being here, and it's,
Right.
it can be detrimental to yourself, to your
Yes.
walk, to others. Yeah. So,
Yes.
uh,
And I think it's easier to get entangled in those things when we're not, because what staying in your lane does is it helps you to keep your focus, right?
hmm, hmm,
It helps you to keep your focus and the focus on what God has you to do.
hmm, hmm,
And like you said, we get out of lane and it's all these other distractions.
yeah,
So you're like, okay, God, are you telling me to do this? I think you're telling me to do this. I think you're telling me to do this.
yeah, yeah,
And then we're like, like you said, standing in that lobby, you're like, yeah, maybe this isn't. God, was that you? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
because because we do have a heart for people,
Hmm.
and we also have a heart to please God.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
a lot of times we put more pressure on ourselves
Hmm.
than we need to.
Yeah.
God is just telling us, just drift in this lane.
Yeah.
All the other stuff is going to happen by you keeping your focus.
Yeah.
All these other things are connected to that you don't even know that I've connected to that.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so, but because I think we desire so hard to please God, a lot of times we overcompensate,
Yeah.
we overcorrect.
Yeah.
And we've seen that happen, and going back to the analogy of vehicles and, accidents. Accidents happen a lot of times when we overcorrect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you end up crashing. And
Yeah.
so it's the same thing in our daily walk and in our daily lives. And I think
Mhm.
that sometimes when there's no action, and I go back to, my impatience,
Yeah.
sometimes just being is very difficult. And
Mhm.
you're like, but God, I know you want me to be doing something. I know
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Just
Exactly.
you just do what I have you doing. And that is it's the simplest thing, but it can be the hardest thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Like you said before, sometimes all he wants us to do is pray. And we have
yeah.
to look at what is our motivation?
Yes,
Is
what
it
is it?
is my motivation? See, and going back to this lady, what was my motivation? It was to
Mm,
keep her from asking other people, bugging other people. Well, that's
mm,
very Jesus-like. That's very loving,
mm,
right? It's like,
mm.
okay, I had no love for this lady or for her situation.
Yes,
So it was like, okay, you have to look at your motivation. What is it? Is it just to, uh, is it self-serving? Is it so, yeah, or out of irritation? Well, if it is, then it's probably not the Lord's leading,
right,
you
right,
know?
right.
So,
And
yeah.
that's true. And not that everything is going to be easy and peachy but
Hmm.
yeah, God gives us warnings as he does with everything else.
Yeah.
We just choose to ignore the signs.
Yeah.
Just like when you're on the freeway, you literally you see the sign. Okay, Sacramento, you go this way. Stockton, you go this way.
Yeah.
It makes no sense for me to say I'm trying to get to Sacramento, but I follow the sign going to Stockton. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And that
Yeah.
usually happens because you're not paying attention. You're not focused. You
Yeah.
miss your turn. You miss your exit. You get off on the wrong exit.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so what I have, so just a couple things that I had looked up, what's some things we can do to kind of just stay in our lane. And so a couple things I came up with is reflect on areas where you may be pulled into unnecessary drama. That's
Hmm.
the vortex.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to think, what does this have to do with me?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What does this have to do with me? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So stay away from the vortex.
Yeah.
Uh, Ask God for wisdom to stay in your lane and trust Him with the growth of others. I think that's the other thing.
Hmm.
Trust that God is going to grow them.
Yeah.
Sometimes all we need to do is pray. And I think as we're getting older and we're the generation, I was telling someone, we're the remnant now. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? It's for us to pray and intercede on behalf of others. And sometimes that's what staying in your lane does. It gives you enough time to really look, discern what people are um going through, what they're struggling with, and for you to intercede on their behalf because clearly you see that they're not in a state where they can pray for themselves.
Hmm.
They
Right.
don't even
Right.
see it. And sometimes I think that's what happens. We see things and we're like, God, I got to call it out. And God
Hmm.
is like, no, I'm not showing you for you to call it out. I'm
Right.
showing you for you to pray on behalf of that person. And what that does is not only are you praying for them, but God is also giving you direction on how you need to move or not move in a situation.
Right. Right. Imparting some wisdom so that when they do come to you, if they do, you'll have
Right.
some wisdom to share. Yeah, good point. Good point.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. So, um, that was all I really had.
Okay. Well, I think it's, I mean, I agree with you. I think since we've been talking and you've been mentioning stay in your lane, I've been thinking about that as well. And just
Mm,
how you do um, kind of force your way in to
mhm.
situations where it's like, and then it does become drama because the person is not ready to receive or is not,
Right.
at that point of understanding, and only God can impart that. Only God can, the God Spirit can impart the need,
That's
but
right.
we're wanting to point it out to you have a need, you have a need, you have a need. And it's like,
Right.
and if the Holy Spirit hasn't pointed it out to them yet, they're looking at like, you need to get back.
Right,
You
that's
need
right.
to, yeah,
And it's like going back to the analogy of us veering into other lanes. You know how it's that car you see way back here. You see that they've been trying to bogart their way.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, no, you're not getting in. You're not.
yeah, yeah,
And then so now you're fighting with that person, right? I'm not
yeah,
gonna let you in.
yeah,
And that's what happens when we try to force our way into somebody else's lane. And then
yeah,
they get defensive and
yeah,
they're fighting against us. And we're like, hey, I'm just trying to help you. They're like,
yeah,
but I don't ask you for that.
yeah,
Nor is God directing you to do that.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
and that is what, and it causes a lot of drama a lot of times.
yeah.
And I thought that was all I had to say, but and I
This
think,
is the second service. Yeah.
yep, this is second close. Um, I think sometimes we have to look at that too. If you're always involved in drama,
hmm hmm
we have to look at the why.
Yeah.
Because although we are a light,
hmm
the light, right?
Good,
Meaning
good point.
sometimes we think we're the light
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're not.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you got to look at that. If there's always drama, where am I at in that? And I think that goes back to the analogy of the vortex.
hmm
Sometimes you're in the middle of it and you don't even realize that you're in the middle of it because you still got to function, right? So even with all this chaos going on and all this stuff going on, you're like, okay, I got to be the one to kind of, um, um, hone it all in and undo it.
hmm
No, you just need to get out the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I think that's something we got to look at too. If there's a bunch of drama around us, why? God, why? Why are you allowing me to see all of this? What is it? Am I part of it? Am I contributing to this?
hmm hmm
But that's what it's helped me to do, to self-reflect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Self
And you've used the term a couple of times, and I say it a lot in situations. I've heard you say, "Not my circus."
Yep.
Yeah.
Not circus.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
And
like,
that is
yeah, not my circus. Let me get out of here. Yeah.
And I've had situations where I've been literally in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm walking away.
Yeah.
At this moment, I'm walking away
Yeah.
because again, we get caught up in the natural, we get caught up. But
Yeah.
when God reveals to you, girl, you are banging your head up against a brick wall.
Yeah.
Let me fall back.
Yeah. Yeah.
On my surface, this is not my issue.
Yeah.
And again, not to just ignore it, but maybe God is having you to address it in a different way. And
Right.
this is not the way. So just go get back in your lane. Say less, Jesus. Say less. I'm
Yeah.
here. And as I have um I've gotten better, of course, still I still get out my lane, but
We're growing.
on
It's
it,
a work in progress. Yeah.
a work in progress. But I can see I've gotten better at recognizing it. And
Hmm.
I don't know if because we're people, right? And because this is an imperfect world and we're imperfect, there's
Hmm.
always going to be chaos. There's always going to be
Yeah.
drama. There's always going to be strife. There's always going to be conflict. But what we have to do is say, okay, God, how do you want me to step to this or not?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so it's coming a little easier. Well, it's
Yeah.
coming quicker. I won't say easier.
Yeah.
It's coming quicker
Yeah. Yeah.
of where I can recognize it
Yeah.
and try to pull myself back.
Yeah.
Before it's too late, then I'm in the middle of it and I'm like, Jesus, why helped you let me get here?
Yeah. Yeah, and I like what you said up front. You said up front, it takes the load off of you, off of
It
your
really
shoulders.
does.
Yeah. And
Really does.
it's very noticeable when you stay in your lane. It really is.
It
Yeah. Yeah.
is. It is.
Yeah.
And so, so I would encourage our friends out there, just stay in your lane.
Hmm.
And if you don't know if you're out your lane, ask God,
Yeah.
am I out of my lane?
And if he says turn off your blinker, you know.
Right. Because we do that sometimes too. I'm not gonna get over yet, but I'm gonna get over.
Yeah.
But that's so true. That's so true. And I'm
Yeah.
so thankful. I'm so thankful for the Holy Spirit. I'm so thankful for God's grace.
Hmm.
That in the midst of me messing things up, and that is not my intent, but
Hmm.
God comes in, and because of His grace,
Hmm.
He will remove you, and He will still do what He said He was going to do.
Yeah.
You know, in
Yeah.
those situations, and I think it's again, it's a building of our faith,
Right.
and it could be difficult. It is difficult, but I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to um the growth, and it is exciting after God is like, hey.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is exciting to then see how God you move out the way and how God
Yeah.
just comes in and does what He's gonna do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So with
Definitely.
that, I'm done.
All right. All right. Well, good advice. Let's try that. Stay in our lanes. Let God do the work.
Yes,
Yeah.
let God do the work.
Yep.
Well, you have anything else, Renee?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay.
I think you covered
Well,
it.
until next time.
Until next time. All right. You take
All
care.
right. You too,
Okay.
Renee.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.